So, welcome to Satsang and Namaste. So, first it would be nice to find out who here has not been to a gathering like this before. Raise your hand, raise your hand. Don't be shy. Okay, if not. So then it probably would be a good idea to explain why we're here. Sometimes it's hard to understand what this is all about. It's even hard for me to explain what the gathering is about. So my name is Brian, and since 2012 I've been holding these gatherings pretty consistently through the US and Canada, and then ultimately settling in Los Angeles and holding regular gatherings there twice a week I've been doing. And this time I decided to come up to Stockton for a week and hold a series here. And so this is like my little spiritual vacation up here. Now we're in Lodi, so. And I'll just explain to you briefly what inspired me to do what I'm doing, how I got here, so you kind of have a sense of what happened. So this, I don't know if you can see him, but this is my spiritual teacher. The printout is a little bit dark, but his name is Swami Purna. Actually, this may be a clearer picture. This little guy right here. And Swami Purna comes from India. He lived in the Himalayas for decades, actually. No one really knows how old he is. There's an estimate he's probably about 170 years old. He's kind of one of those eternal yogis that can choose when to discard the body. And that's not an unusual thing. Many yogis over history have been able to achieve that state of immortality where they kind of have a choice of when their death will be. And not only that, but the true yogi is very conscious when the body is discarded. So they'll continue on into the next lifetime or the next realm or whatever and know exactly what they are, who they are. Whereas a normal human being, when it dies, you have no idea what your past lifetimes were. You lose sight. You may not even remember just your previous past lifetime, let alone the 100,000 lifetimes before that. But a yogi is conscious of every single one of them and knows exactly what has happened and sees not only all of the lifetimes of himself or herself, but will be able to look at you and see all of your lifetimes as well and know exactly what you need in order to progress spiritually. So it's a rather extraordinary being. It's a being who is cosmically conscious, who knows itself to be everywhere and everything. So you can imagine when I met such a being that's actually living, I was stunned. I remember meeting him in 2008 at a retreat in New York City, of all places, New York City. And before he came into the room, there was a little bookstore of 60 people who had gathered. I was crying, I was in tears, before I even saw him. And I knew that he would be my guide, my spiritual guide for not only this lifetime, but lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And he would be the one to guide me across, we'll call it the ocean of suffering that is in the mind. So the purpose of these gatherings is to assist people in crossing over the suffering of their own mind. An interesting concept. The cause of any of your unhappiness is simply your own mind, how you perceive your life, right? Mm-hmm. For one situation, you could feel great about it, you love it, and you're super happy. And another person who may be in the same exact situation may hate it and may be despairing, right? A very simple example would be, let's say you've got some yogis that will sit in meditation for years and years and years alone in a cave, and they'll be blissful every single moment. Whereas another person who tries to sit in the cave and meditate will be miserable after a few days and say, I want my family back, or I want my friends back, and gets very lonely. So for one person, it's blissful, and another person, it's unhappy. So all interpreted by your own mind. So here, we are actually trying to transform our mind into a state of blissful consciousness where no matter what occurs in your life, it never rocks you.
It never what?
Never rocks you.
Rocks.
Meaning, rocks. Like, you know when something happens to you, I'll give you an extreme example. Someone crashes into your car, broadsides you. You feel rocked. Mm-hmm. Whoa, what just happened? Rocked, shocked.
Rocks your boat.
Rocks your boat, rocks your world. You get traumatized, right? Whereas if you're in a blissful state of consciousness where your mind is just relaxed and at peace, if someone crashes into your car, you simply get out, if you're able to walk at least, and go and help the other person who crashed into your car. And you have no anger towards them, no irritation, no depression, you're just flowing with life, and everything's good, right? In the most difficult circumstances. And so, as it is, a normal person is locked in their subconscious mind, which consists usually of a lot of traumatic experiences that we've had in life. As an example, a broken heart. Someone broke up with me, someone abandoned me, someone betrayed me. And that sticks inside our heart. It's called a broken heart. And so every person who we meet, who we try to become intimate with in the future, we project that broken heart onto them. And so we become scared of intimacy, or we become worried that they might betray us or hurt us or whatever. That's the nature of karma. And it's usually difficult to go beyond because the karmic beliefs are so strong. Another interesting example of ideas of karma, right? When a person hears about a guru, they think cult. They think, oh, brainwashing. They think, oh, can't you think for yourself? Right? There's so many. And usually when there comes news of a guru, and it's usually bad news. Right? This person did this, took advantage of this student, and so on and so forth. There's so much baggage around guru. So when a true guru comes along, who's pure and uplifting, we say, oh, well, I can't trust that. There's been too much bad news. That's programming. So then you never recognize the true saint that comes into your life. I'm saying this because this is very, very common. Same thing that happened with Jesus Christ, right? Most people doubted him, and many people hated him, and even his own disciples betrayed him, right? So it's when a true, say, divine being comes into your life, the question is, do you even recognize it? And often not, because we have so much skepticism about who's a saint and who's not, what's a guru, who's not, who's a savior, who's not, this and that, right? That's the building up of karma. So it's challenging, and our whole mind is a huge construct of judgments. So every person in here who comes to this gathering has a judgment about what's happening here, has an opinion.
Or judging, yes.
Right, judging me or judging the context or what am I doing here, what's this all about? it's the little monkey mind that has beliefs about everything, has an opinion about everything. So it's difficult to even quiet the mind down in order to truly feel silence and presence. Because that little monkey mind won't shut up. That is what I call the inner commentator. Now, there was a great saint named Baba Haridas. He actually lives in near Watsonville, if you know where Watsonville is. He actually recently died. He was living at a place called Mount Madonna, which is does anyone know Mount Madonna?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, some of you. Have you seen Baba Haridas?
I haven't seen him personally, though.
Yeah, a great saint. He once said that enlightenment is when the inner commentator dies.
Okay.
Right? That little judger that says, this is good and bad, I like this, I don't like this. When that one dies, now all you feel is presence everywhere. Peace, bliss, love, joy. No more judging. No more problems. Human consciousness is problem conscious, is it not? Every day we're trying to think of problems to solve, right? Every day.
Yeah, for sure.
This is how we think. So life becomes this big sort of problem until the day we die. And like at the moment that and this is amazing what happens. And you'll relate to this when you get to your deathbed, because you can't really go there until you're facing death, right? When you get to the point of death, you go, what did I do in life? What was the point? And I'm dying here. And it's like, oftentimes, when we are dying, we become very present with life right now. Because there's really not much future to worry about anymore. Right? That's what I mean by presence. Worry is what might happen in the future. This might happen, I might get hurt, I might lose my job, I might lose my retirement, I might not have enough money, this person might abandon me. When you're about to die, you don't care about that anymore. You really don't. That's why many people have amazing spiritual experiences right before they die. Why not have them way before you die? This is why I love to contemplate death, because it really gets me present to right now. I could die tomorrow, so what am I doing today to uplift myself and others? This is a little thing that I do every day. So I was telling Tim that I drive probably about 8 hours a day to make a living, although my car is my temple, so anyone who comes in may be able to feel the energy and meditate with me. So I'm meditating while I'm driving. It's possible. But you have to be very careful. Right? So they come in. We have a really sweet drive, sometimes with spiritual talk. And we're listening to spiritual music. And then when they're about to leave, I give them a gift. Now this was the suggestion of my sister. My sister's really smart. She's really wise. She's my little sister. She says, why don't you give a gift to every passenger that comes into your car? Like candy or something. Or water or whatever. And I said, candy's really not up my alley. Candy's rather unhealthy, so I think I'll try to figure out some other gift. And you know what I came up with? A little card. And on that card, it's this sort of very colorful, beautiful scene of planets and the stars and people holding hands and like satellites and trees and flowers. And it's this tiny card, but it's incredibly detailed and it looks like the hands of God. And on the back of it, the card says, this card is something like, this card represents love. So initial it and pass it on to the next person. And when the card is filled up, keep it by your bedside. So I give them the card right before they leave the car. And they look at it and go, and many of them, you wouldn't believe, wow, I could look at this for hours. And they love it, right? And then they feel so good coming out of that car. And it may seem to you like a small thing, but I'm telling you, like one small gift like that can change an entire person's day. One small thing, one small gesture. And the neat thing about it is they get to pass it on to someone else. You've heard that concept of pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best ways to become happy is to pass happiness on to another person. Or another being, cat, dog, rat, whatever you like to give to, assist. One of the greatest ways to experience happiness. So here tonight, we're going to try to create some inner happiness through our meditation practices. My belief, my feeling, and my experience has been as my mind goes into meditation, my life becomes smooth and happy and blissful. So I wanted to share some of the, we'll call them techniques or ways to put your mind easily into meditation, right? Because most people, when they sit down in a meditation, they go, okay, Mr. Mind or Mrs. Mind, it's time to be quiet now. I'd like to relax. After 2 minutes, you get fed up because it still continues to roll around, even if you're begging your mind to be quiet. Is that not the case? You can even try it right now and see if you believe me. Try telling your mind, just be quiet even for 2 minutes, please. I want to feel at peace. And will the mind obey you? Does it not have a mind of its own? It's almost like it's not you, right? Because it thinks for itself. It's not like you try to tell it to be quiet, but it doesn't want to be quiet. So the question is the mind actually you? That's an interesting question.
That is.
Because if it's chattering away, even if you tell it to be quiet, then who is it? Who is this little monkey? So, your true being is beyond your body, beyond your mind, and beyond your emotions. And when those bodies get settled down, now you can go deeper into closer to what I call your soul or your inner being, that quiet place. But until you quiet yourself, it's going to be very hard to tune into that presence. Very hard. Because you're going to be all over the place thinking about something else. So I'd like to lead a very simple meditation with you. Oh, it's one of my favorites. It's called the Lotus Flower Meditation. Has anyone listened to the CD called Divine Meditations? Anyone listened to it yet? On there is the Lotus Flower Meditation. I decided it was so great I had to record it. But I want to guide you now into this meditation and see if you can kind of feel into it and kind of watch the magic unfold through this. So, a very simple way to begin a meditation is simply to take in some deep breaths. And in this case, let's try this. Let's try imagining as you're breathing in deeply through your nose, you're breathing in light into your body. And then when you're breathing out through your nose, you're exhaling darkness, negativity, whatever stuff that's bothering you, you're just releasing it out through your nose. So you're breathing in light, love, joy, peace, all of that into your body. And then you're exhaling all of the darkness, all of the toxins. So let's try that just for about 2 minutes and really try to focus on your breath and this visualization, because the more focused you get on it, the more profound effect it will have. Okay? So we close our eyes, taking a deep breath, breathe in the light, and exhale all darkness. Inhale positivity. Exhale negativity. Breathing in the light. Exhale all darkness. Breathing in healing energy. Exhale all toxins. Continuing to do this. Breathing deeply, the light. Exhale the darkness. Let's take in 3 more deep breaths. And then we just relax. And notice the state of your mind. Notice your feeling of being. So now we're going to just do a couple of very simple movements. And these movements open your inner energy channels to send you into a deeper state of meditation. It's very, very simple. Just simply bring your chin up till you're facing the ceiling. And then slowly bringing your chin back down till it comes to the chest. And then gently bringing the chin back up till you're facing the ceiling. slowly bringing the chin back down to chest. Continuing this up and down just for about a minute or so. Paying attention to the movement, being mindful. And then coming back to center. And then notice your state. How does your mind feel? Some people may start to feel a flow, or an energy, or a shift. And then the second movement, gently turn your face to the right, to your facing the right wall. And then slowly turn the head towards the left, till you're facing the left wall. All in slow motion, moving from right to left. Paying attention to this movement. And then coming back to center. And now notice the state of your mind. Although simple, these movements actually have a very profound effect on your energetic system and place you into a deep meditation, or who knows, maybe even for some people, a deep sleep. Okay. So that alone, if you did those 3 things, will prepare you for a beautiful meditative practice. So now I'll guide you through the visualization, and try to visualize what I'm expressing to you as clearly as you can, because it can take you into the state of samadhi. And samadhi just means you're gone. You are gone. You're just merged with presence. This pure consciousness, nothing else, no world, no you. It's almost like being asleep, but you're still wide awake. So this is samadhi. Okay, so we close our eyes and just visualize a crystal clear stream running through your chest, kind of flowing through your chest area. Right across your heart area. And just feel the flow of that stream. And imagine a beautiful white lotus flower floating on that stream at the center of your heart. And in the distance, you see a forest of towering trees. And the first light of dawn streams over the tops of the trees. And those rays of sun come down to strike that lotus flower at the center of your heart. Feel the rays of light pouring into that white lotus flower. And that flower opens, blooms to receive the light. More and more light pouring into that flower at the center of your heart. And that flower becomes radiant. And it glows brighter and brighter until the glow fills your entire chest. And that light spreads through your whole body, up through your neck and head. And the light spreads down through your arms, down your torso, down through your hips, legs, feet, until your whole body is consumed in this brilliant light. And the light expands into your aura, surrounds your body, glowing brilliantly, pure white light. Just let the image go. And just feel yourself merging with the energy. The feeling of presence. Imagine disappearing into that presence. And then very gently we come back to the awareness of the room and our seat. Our body, the air, and when we are ready, we can open our eyes. And so you are totally welcome to share anything that you experienced during that meditation. Or if you could even define your own inner experience with one word.
Empty.
Say empty? Say yours again?
First time I relaxed in here.
She said first time she's relaxed in a year.
I felt a lot of heat. That's
Heat.
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 Energy, not hot like outside, but sweating. Well, I'm not sweating though, but I felt like I was sweating.
It was like bliss.
Bliss.
Yeah.
Void, empty, similar, yeah.
What'd you think?
No, my mind was empty. Like,
Mind was empty. Yeah.
Awareness.
Awareness. Beautiful. So, it has been my experience that if you gather together in what I call, and you can use a different word, but in a holy space, a sanctified space, where the presence is very strong, and you try to meditate in that space, you will be a lot more effective at quieting your mind. And my suggestion is, if you try this practice at home, that you try to do it in one room in your house, and make that room as your meditation room, where you don't do any sort of worldly things in that room. you just do your spiritual practices or your meditations. Because what will happen is it will program the air, the environment, with that vibration. So when you go into that space, it will be way easier for you to drop in. Does that make any sense at all? Right?
It's a zone.
It's a zone, right? Zone, free of
Yeah.
all the sort of activities of the world. You go there as your own sort of temple or church. And you make it, and same thing for like a cushion, right? So I'm sitting on a cushion. When you meditate upon a specific cushion, the cushion gets programmed with the energy that you're attuning to. So then when you sit on the cushion again, it will send your mind into meditation automatically. That's how it works.
I meditate on a hammock in my front yard,
Uh-huh.
and I immediately go into meditation.
Well, there you go. So your mind will definitely associate certain objects with peacefulness and meditation. So this is just sort of practical advice if you want to continue on doing this sort of thing for yourself. See, I've found that the trouble with getting people to meditate consistently is they don't have a real, number one, they just get busy with life, doing other things, and they don't make their meditation practices a priority. And number two is they don't have the proper tools to really invoke a powerful presence. Many people receive meditation techniques from people who are not in meditation. So let me repeat this again, because it's so when you receive a meditative technique from someone who is in meditation, you are receiving a part of them, and that practice is now, we'll call it initiated. It's a sort of initiation. It's almost like the person who gave you that practice is triggering something inside you, so that when you do the same practice, that trigger is remembered. Versus if you went to the internet and you did a search and it said, I don't know, some sort of lotus flower meditation or something, and you found it, says, oh, that sounds like a good meditation, you practice it. What's happening is you're attuning to the consciousness of the person on the internet who gave you that meditation. So that's why it's very helpful to receive a meditation from someone who's already connected and who can help to sort of open you up to a deeper experience. I've said this before. You don't necessarily need a meditation teacher, but it's extraordinarily helpful to make your path fly. This is why when I met my teacher, after I met him, it was like my meditation practice and spiritual practice was on rocket fuel, where I changed so drastically within, what I mean within, my inner experience of life changed so quickly, so drastically, that the person that I was when I met him, 2008, so what has it been, 11 years, is a completely different being. Like, my whole being has sort of been rearranged since then. Like, my mind is a completely different mind. It thinks differently, it feels differently. It's in a different state of being all the time now compared to what it was back then. So a quick transformation, you could say. And profound, because when I say profound is, my path is what you call the Purna path. Purna means wholeness and completeness. That means that I'm taking every single aspect of my being and purifying it. All of my negativity from the million lifetimes that I've had before, and I'm trying to process all of that in this lifetime, which is an extremely difficult path, trust me, because I have to see my ego, my reactions, So I'm put into very difficult situations. It's like it's compacted my karma. So where normally it would take 20 lifetimes to process all of this karma, now it's being compacted into a single lifetime. So the intensity of what I'm going through is, not to say overwhelming, but it's kind of astonishing. But I can't stop. It's kind of like when you get into a cart that's going down, or no, let's say, what would be a good metaphor for that? It's like an avalanche, where you get one of those snowballs and it's rolling down the hill. This is what I'm on.
The great momentum.
Right? So I've gotten so much momentum, I'm on like this fast train and I cannot get off the train. So I'm trying not to crash. And this is the intensity. And so my energy is just, I can't even explain to you. It's like I've turned in, it's like sometimes feeling almost like a sun, And so what do I do with that? I have to hold gatherings, share it with people. I can't, I feel compelled. I can't stop. And that's what I was saying. Even if I had nothing and I was on the side of the street on a corner, which, by the way, happened to me when I was doing my 3 years as a sort of wandering monk across the U.S. I went to a place called Fort Collins, Colorado. Does anyone know Fort Collins? Fort Collins, I was there. See, when I go into a town, I don't know anyone. So for 3 years, I left my financial planning business, renounced all of it, renounced my old life, and sold my business, sold everything, and gave away all my suits, all my majority of my clothes, and put everything that I had in my van, and put a bed in the van, and I set off, right? And one town that I came across was Fort Collins. I didn't know anyone in Fort Collins. And there was a woman there who ran a yoga studio, and she said, sure, why not? You can hold a gathering at my yoga studio. So I said, well, gosh, how am I going to invite people? So it was like 3 days before the Friday night gathering. I brought this harmonium out and sat on a street corner. And I played and I sang. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You've heard the Beatles sing that song, right? So I would play for hours the first day. I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. And it was interesting because people would be passing by. Most people didn't even want to hold my gaze. Didn't even want to look over there. Didn't even want to acknowledge there was someone there playing on the street this harmonium. Right? And some people go, wow, that's kind of fascinating. They look at me and then quickly, shyly leave, right? And some people would sit and they would talk with me for a little while. And I just kept playing. And it was not easy. It was actually kind of humiliating because I had never done that before. Sat in an unknown town on the corner in the middle of town, and just people passed by and I would sing for them. And I would have my little sign that says, at the nearest yoga studio, there's a gathering, please come and join me. And so after the third day of doing this, my voice got hoarse. I thought, how am I going to sing at a gathering? I've lost my voice. So that Friday night was the gathering. And it just happened on that same night. If anyone has heard of this, there's a huge festival of like all these famous musicians that come into town, and 50,000 people pour in to hear these great bands and musicians that night, Friday night, and over the course of the weekend. Happened to be a huge gathering. I forgot what you call it, but people who have lived in Fort Collins know about this gathering. I did not. Well, I brought all my stuff, harmonium, cushion, yoga mat, bookstore with books and CDs and malas and things like that. I was like, I had parked. During those 3 days, I lived next to a park because I had no one to stay with. because I was just kind of beginning and I didn't know. Maybe I should have asked someone if they wanted to house me. So I stayed in my van and slept at night next to this park and hung out at the park by the lake there. And I would use the park bathroom to give myself a sponge bath. That's how I was living during those 3 days. So that Friday night, the guy, he was probably maybe about a 50-year-old guy or so, really, he was one of the yoga teachers at that studio, really smart guy, knew a lot about yoga, really bright, he'd done a lot of studying. And he let me in and he sat down and he was one of the people who stayed. And one other girl came. And that was my gathering. 2 people. And I started to talk about spirituality and yoga and mantra and Vedic traditions in India. And the girl who didn't know much would say, oh, I have a question. She would ask this question and I'd be ready to talk about it. I'd talk about it a little bit and suddenly the guy would come in, interrupt, and give a long discourse on the answer to her question. He knew more about the subject than I did. Oh, go ahead. And that was the pride-swallowing gathering, because he did that quite often during it. I was ready to just hand it over to him. And then about 3/4 through the gathering, the girl says, oh, yes, I need to go now. Okay. Thank you for coming. Bye. And then she gave me like a little bit of a donation and left. And then it was just me and him. There are 2 people in this room and he knows more about yoga than I do. So I tried to, I kind of ended that song early after she left, soon after. And then he gave me a little donation, and then we went out and I carried all of my stuff on my shoulders. He locked the door, and then I walked out, and there this huge festival was happening in the evening. And there was all this loud music going on. The whole city was sort of vibrating with this music. And I walked alone through this sea of people who were all sort of happy and joyful and drinking their beers. There was a lot of beer drinking. And I walked back to my van, put my stuff in the van, and then drove back to the park. And I slept that night in the van. Perhaps one of the loneliest moments of my whole trip. Yeah, very difficult. Imagine, walking through a sea of people after 2 people had come to my gathering, right? Everyone wanted to be part of this sort of drinking festival, and I thought, no one wants to come and hear what I have to say. And I was telling him, telling Tim, when I first started the journey of the 3 years of sharing this according to the instructions of my teacher, when I first started, I was so excited because I thought, this is the greatest thing that I've ever experienced. The energy, the love, the joy, the bliss. This is so wonderful. There have got to be thousands of people out there that want to come and be a part of this. Very innocent. And then to be disillusioned like this, very difficult to go through. I went through a lot of challenges that way. And imagine going from city to city and knowing no one, and maybe no one would show up and maybe someone would. But I have a passion for the cause. Like I said to Tim, whether I have money or not is not the point. This is the purpose of what I'm here to do. Whether people really want to support it or not, it's okay with me. My own heart is singing. My inner space is singing, no matter what the outside world is reflecting back to me. And that inner space is my own treasure. As your inner space is your own treasure. It would be wonderful to be able to walk through life, and no matter what the circumstances are, your heart keeps singing in joy, love, bliss. I say you could be a poor man or a rich man, poor girl or a rich girl. And if you're a poor man, you be the best poor man that you can be. And if you're going to be a rich man, be the best rich man that you can be. That's what counts. It's your sentiment, your inner heart. It's not what everyone else is telling you you should do or what you should think or what you shouldn't think. I said to myself, I'm going to follow this dream no matter how many doubts other people have about this. My mother said to me when I left for those 3 years, kind of like a few months in, she said, are you sure about this, Brian? Like, how are you going to support yourself? And I said, the universe will take care of me. I mean, that's not necessarily what you want to tell your mother, because she had a lot of doubts about that, but she was amazed that, week after week after week, I would call her, and I seemed so happy. It was like, well, Brian, you must be doing something right, because then more and more people started to come to the gatherings too. It's like, wow, something's really working. And so then she believed. So I want to guide us through what I call the heart meditation. And this is a very also simple visualization and beautiful as well, to help you to kind of break out of the shell of just being here in a physical body, because you are so much more vast than that. It's a matter of, do you experience yourself just merely as a body sitting here on a couch in someone's home and you're listening to some guy? Or do you feel huge, expansive, spacious, endless, right? You can tune into either radio station, so to speak, depending on what you focus on. Because your identity and who you are pretty much is what you are concentrating on. If you're concentrating on something that's huge and infinite, your being starts to flow into that. If you concentrate on something very limited, like I'm just this tiny person and I'm nothing, then you become like that. Okay. So the heart meditation. We'll begin simply by taking in 3 deep breaths in and out through the nose. Relax for a moment. Now let's just imagine a globe of pure light inside your heart. Try to imagine that globe of pure light as clearly as you can. Just imagine that globe of light is expanding brightly, filling your chest, and then beginning to expand beyond the confines of your body till the globe now has consumed your whole body. This sort of brilliant globe of light where now you can't even see your body, it's just glowing. And now it expands through the room until the whole room is just beaming. All the furniture is consumed in the light. All the people, the air. Now it expands through the house, now to consume the entire house in this brilliant light. Now it expands outside, across the fields, consuming all the trees, grass, the roads, all the other homes. This light expands through Lodi. Now spreading like a tidal wave across the state. This light consumes the forests, the lakes, the cities, the mountains, everything being consumed in this brilliant light of the heart. Until the entire state of California is filled with pure light. Spreading across the continent. The light consumes the land. Until it's spread across all of North America. And spreads across the ocean. Slowly consuming the entire earth. This light is so bright it's blinding. Until the whole earth is now pulsating with this brilliant light of the heart. And then the light bursts into space. And spreads through the solar system, consuming all the planets and the sun. The radiance spreads and expands through space towards the distant stars. Consuming those stars. The light spreads across the Milky Way galaxy. And now endlessly across the universe. And now there is only one infinite light. Boundless, pure. There is only the light. You are this light. Only one light, one being, perfect. And then very gently bringing the attention back to the room and the space. When we are ready, we can open our eyes. Does anyone have a comment on their experience of that particular meditation? A word that might describe what you felt.
Mine's not a little hippie-ish, but love. Lots of love.
Love.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Beautiful is my experience.
Beautiful.
Same, I think same.
Yeah.
Didn't wanna stop.
Yeah, that was hard to come out of.
Mhm.
Like,
That
it
was, well, you just want to stay right where you're at.
Yeah.
My sense was I
Right.
am.
I am.
I am. Probably because I've been to other things that were talking about when you become that I am. It's universal, it's one.
Right. Yeah, and just consider that for a moment, that just because the mind is presenting this seeming idea of separation of me and the rest of the world doesn't make it true. This is a very big point to make, which is the sort of root of all suffering of people, is this egoic idea of I'm the center of the universe and everything revolves around me. That is the source of suffering. When one sort of penetrates beyond the ego, one can find that indeed there is only pure light, that there is nothing else. It's just right now, it seems from this perspective, the mind's perspective, that I'm in a body and there are other people around and there are other things around. But that doesn't mean that it's truth, that it's the absolute reality. It's just a perspective. And so in spiritual circles, we question the reality that the mind presents us and say, is it true, and do I have to really believe in everything that the mind is telling me? And we joke about that. It's like from one day to the next, the mind can be grumpy to happy. It can see the world as very black to very light, depending on what state of mind you're in, right? So because it shifts so quickly, you can imagine the mind really is an illusion, because it just keeps changing. It doesn't fix on anything. It's kind of like you look at an ocean and the waves are boiling, so they're going up and down, but it's still an ocean. The waves keep changing, but they're still the ocean. Similarly, these bodies are like waves in consciousness. And somehow consciousness got fixed on this body and said, this is me. And then is seemingly running an entire life based upon this idea, which is actually not true. It's just very few want to follow the spiritual path because it requires breaking out of your comfort zones. We get caught in patterns of thinking and living that are so fixed that it's hard to let go of the ideas of I am human and I'm a person and I'm separate and I'm this and I'm female and I'm male and all that stuff. All of that is made up in your mind, as well as this whole thing, this sort of magical, what did the Beatles write? The magical mystery tour is dying to take you away, dying to take you away, take you today. You heard that song before? Right? Like, that's a good example of, like, this is a magical mystery tour where you're in a three-dimensional movie, you're one of the characters in the movie, but you don't realize that you're on the screen of consciousness. You're running around thinking that I'm actually this person on the screen of the movie. It's interesting, because you've been running around on the screen so long that suddenly you believe that that was you. Perhaps eons ago, you knew that this was all sort of a screen of consciousness. And so if you knew that, then you feel yourself as the vast consciousness as opposed to fixated on this little tiny point, a dot on Earth in the midst of an endless universe. I mean, it's a crazy idea to believe I must be in here. You really have to consider this. So I'm presenting to you this sort of contemplation. You can take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter to me. But some people may be able to kind of think more deeply and say, maybe he's got a point. I could see how my mind is kind of tricking me into thinking life is a certain way when that person over there is living in their own universe and they see it in a completely different way. Who's to say who's right and wrong? That's how you develop compassion. Because you don't know what's going on in that being's mind and what they've experienced in life to make them the way they are. You don't know, yeah.
In my experience in that last meditation, when the universe kind of just dissolved in the light, I experienced several recent experiences all happening at the same time. It was kind of confusing. So I was like, wow, did this happen just now or yesterday or, you know, and then I realized what was happening. That I was just in this space where it was all happening now.
Now, exactly.
And there was no real separation, but there was no conflict either. It was really strange.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying. It's like this now moment really has no time, and everything is happening all at once. Because there's just now. Eckhart Tolle often talks about that idea of now. But in order to get into the now and to quote unquote dissolve time for yourself, it requires some meditative practice. Because if you're constantly rolling with the mind, what he just said isn't going to even make any sense. He's going, oh, that's nice for you. Great. Nice experience. Good for you. Hooray. You know what I mean? Like, it can be easily, because everyone is experiencing the world that they create for themselves. So my question is do you want to create a mystical, magical world for yourself, or do you want to create a world of misery where you judge everything that you see? And the world's throwing you up and down. This is wonderful. Oh, this is horrible. This is wonderful. Imagine you've been going through eons, lifetime after lifetime of going through that up and down. When does it end? It's like the Buddha. You know, the story of the Buddha is at the point of his nirvana, of enlightenment, he knew all of his past lives. You see, you don't want to know all of your past lives right now. You know why? That's a lot of trauma to come to the surface all at once. You'd probably explode or implode, either way, right here and now, if you experience all the traumas of all your past lifetimes right now. That's why we conveniently forget everything that we did or experienced in all those lifetimes. Only when you're enlightened can you handle all that trauma. You can't even handle the trauma of your own life. You don't want to see it. That's how the mind works. It's like, oh, I experienced a trauma. Let me compartmentalize that over here in this mind. I don't want to feel that or see that. It's too overwhelming. So we sort of live in this subconscious soup, and the same things keep haunting us. We've repeated this kind of lifetime over and over and over and over again. You've done it all. You've had tons of spouses. You've had tons of kids, tons of families, tons of being rich men, poor girl, rich girl. Poor dad, rich dad. You have done it all already. My question is when do you decide I want to return back to my source? Because that's the ending of the great illusion, is it not? When you see through the whole game, you return back to your source. Then, you can choose to decide to incarnate into duality or not. You're fully conscious, fully aware. In that state, you're free of the illusion. You're free of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. That these souls are going through. Imagine quadrillions and quadrillions of souls coming into this universe and being incarnated over and over and over again. Waves and waves of beings. This is one piece. It seems like this is nothing. Our egoic problems that we have in this world are nothing compared to the vastness of existence. Nothing. It makes our ego so small. And yet when we're triggered, it seems so big. Oh, the sky is falling. What is that? The chicken that... Chicken Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. And it was just a rock that hit his head or something, and he thought the whole sky was falling. There's a story. Has anyone read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Arthur Dent, at the beginning of that story, his house is going to be bulldozed over for a superhighway. It's going to run straight through his house. He's so angry that he goes and lies in the mud next to his house to block the bulldozers from coming to bulldoze his house. He's so disturbed by this. How can they do this? And in the meantime, in space, the Intergalactic Academy, or whatever you call it, is like saying, okay, it's time for us to build this superhighway, but we have to run over Earth now. We have to bulldoze Earth because Earth's in the way of our supergalactic highway that runs from galaxy to galaxy. We have to destroy Earth because it's in the way. So here, Arthur Dent is worried about his little house. He's lying in the mud and cursing at these bulldozers, so worried about this. And in the meantime, whole Earth is about to be destroyed. Do you see my point here? Our little world is tiny compared to galaxies colliding. We put that in perspective, and life just doesn't seem that hard anymore. It's all good. Just roll with it. So, roll. So I'm gonna play it. What's that? Surrender. Yeah, you surrender. To what is. To what is. So I'm gonna play a mantra where we can all sing together, and then I'm gonna conclude with the sort of final series of mantras. So this mantra, very simple, it's called Hari Om. And I define it as, it's a Sanskrit term. First you could say Hari means, it's another term for God in Sanskrit, and Om is also another term for God. They're just different ways of saying it. But I like to say Hari Om means hurry home. Hurry home. Come back to your true source. Hurry home. Hurry home. So you can chant, you can sing with me. And again, we'll have the intention that the vibration of this mantra kind of purifies, blesses the home. It's sanctified, blessed. You can just feel into this mantra as you're chanting it. What does it feel like inside you, vibrating through your cells, through your thoughts, through your emotions? Hari mantras. These particular mantras are in honor of my teacher, Sri 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 Swami Purna Maharaj, who blesses this gathering tonight with his grace and his love, his joy. So just take a bath, feel the light, listen deeply, let it touch your heart, let it awaken your soul. Lead us from untruth to truth. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. The Guru is Brahma, the creator. The Guru is Vishnu, the sustainer. The Guru is Shiva, the dissolver. The Guru is indeed the supreme being. I bow unto that Guru. You are my mother, yes you are. You are my father, yes you are. You're my friend. You're my wealth. You're everything to me. You're my God of gods. This is whole. And that is whole. From wholeness comes the whole. When we take away the whole from the whole still remains whole. Place our hands in prayer position in front of our heart. We'll chant together Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, sending a wave of peace Shanti.